It is early on the first day of the week, and it is still dark while Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb. The Gospel of John is peppered with the motif of light and dark, these being symbols for being enlightened, or unenlightened, for understanding or misunderstanding. Mary has come to the tomb in darkness. As she arrives, she is unenlightened. She is in the dark, as we say, describing someone who is unaware, who has not been told the whole story. As we hear this story, we though are like people watching a horror movie, or watching a detective or a police drama, or a suspense movie, or even a daytime soap opera. You know, we know the genre, so we can anticipate what action will take place next. We know that the lead character, with his or her hand reaching for the doorknob, should not go into that dark basement alone. We know the rest of the story. We know the genre. We've heard it before. But no one had heard this story before. Certainly no one had lived this story before. Not as Mary was living it that morning. No one had. While some Jews believed in the resurrection of the dead, they believed that this event would be something that happened at the end of time. That it would happen when God resolves all things and brings all things to God and makes everything right. No one believed that any one single person would not stay dead until that time. Certainly Rome, the world's lone superpower, believed that Jesus of Nazareth, whom they executed as a threat to empire, a seditious threat to empire, Rome believed certainly that he would stay dead. Why not? Mary expected to find the tomb as it had been left. As it had been left when Joseph of Arimathea, there should be different phonetics in that name. When Joseph of Arimathea laid the inert body of Jesus of Nazareth to rest in a small, traditional Palestinian tomb. One of the most ornate structures in New York City is Grant's Tomb, and the joke runs, who's buried at Grant's tomb? The tomb in which Jesus of Nazareth was laid was not an ornate structure. It was a small, traditional Palestinian tomb about 3 foot square. Mary expected to find the tomb as it had been left. After she found the stone rolled away, Mary ran to tell the disciples, to tell Peter and the beloved disciple. These two, Peter and the beloved disciple, run to the tomb. And they discover that the tomb is in fact empty, just as Mary had said. Then they simply return home. We're told that the beloved disciple believes, but we're not told what it is that he believes at this point. No one had ever heard this story before. No one knew what to make of the situation. How would they know what to believe? Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. Barbara Brown Taylor is one of America's well-known preachers, and in one sermon she described Mary as a pup. She described Mary as a pup who had lost her master and now remains at the last place that she saw him, at the last place they were together. Mary's beloved master and teacher had been violently wrenched from her, had been violently wrenched by the crushing power of evil. Her people understood the crushing power of evil. They had been under its boot for centuries. Like women before her, she had come to the tomb to mourn. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the end, one at the head, and the other at the feet. Where the body of Jesus had been lying, he's not there. Mary, like the other disciples, had come to know the very presence of God in the person of Jesus of Nazareth. We refer to Jesus as the Incarnation. That means God made flesh. Like the other disciples, Mary had come to know the presence of God in the person of Jesus of Nazareth. He had been wrenched from her violently by the crushing powers of evil, and now not even his body remains. And in one sense, the pain is so intense that she can no longer feel God's presence. Yet God is present. God is present in the form of the two angels. But Mary hasn't put this all together yet. It hasn't dawned on her yet. And like Mary, we too have had experiences in our lives when God has been both present and absent at the same time. We have had experiences of loss where we have wandered around in a fog trying to put things together. Perhaps we have lost someone close. We have lost a loved one. Perhaps we have lost a job. Perhaps we've lost a farm. In one sense, life is about learning how to negotiate loss. But when we lose someone we love, perhaps to a sudden, unexpected illness or death, their absence creates a hole in us that only their presence can fill. And that can't happen anymore. For a time, it seems, even God can't fill that hole. But if God has called us to be part of a community like this, then God is still present to us, even as our hearts are filled with pain and sorrow. Our friends and family, our biological family, and our church family support us. They support us at these times with cards and phone calls and text messages. They support us with casseroles and visits. They support us with flowers and such. They may bring a casserole to us while we have trouble even negotiating daily necessary activities. Perhaps they will even provide a meal for us after the funeral, when we may even find it difficult to simply stand. Sometimes we may even forget to breathe. It is at times like this that the people of God become the very presence of God. They become the presence of God when God seems absent to us. But apparently Mary doesn't even recognize the angels as the divine presence. She simply repeats her story to them. "Woman, why are you weeping?" they ask, and she says to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they have laid him." When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she didn't know it was Jesus. She supposed him to be the gardener. And Jesus says to her, "Why are you weeping? For whom are you looking?" Again, supposing him to be the gardener, she says to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Let us for a moment reflect and remember that the story of creation by God takes place in a garden. And Mary encounters the risen Christ outside the tomb and supposes him to be the gardener. Is this the divine gardener once again? But once again, for a moment, the divine presence escapes her. But her life is about to undergo a re-creation. Jesus says to her, Mary. She turns and says to him in Hebrew, Rabboni, which means teacher. There's a saying that the sweetest sound we will ever hear is our own name. Our own name is the sweetest sound we ever hear. Think about it. Isn't it true? I mean, when you're in a crowd and you hear your name, you suppose somebody is calling to you, even if you're alone and you don't know that anybody you know should be there. If you hear your name, you perk up. If someone we love calls us by name, something happens inside, right? In John's Gospel, Jesus has referred to himself as a shepherd. And the shepherd is the model of a Jewish leader. Jewish leaders are spoken of as the shepherd of the people. Jesus said, the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name. And the sheep follow him because they know his voice. The dawn breaks on Mary as Jesus calls her by name. He is no longer absent, but right there in front of her. His lifeless body has not been taken by grave robbers. He is alive.